All right, in case we missed your comment in last night's Crimes After Dark on, what was it, February 4th, 2026, this is your chance to get your comments answered. The Fireside Chat, where I take my favorite comments that brought thoughts to my mind, and I talk about them in depth, one-on-one, featuring your comments. Make sure to look at the list of the description to see if your name appears there and that you're one of the people that I selected to comment on your comment or on the chat. You may have more than one, so look on the list carefully. You might be on there more than one time, sometimes 3 or 4 times. So again, depends on how good your comments are and whether they spurred me to have discussions. So by the way, if your name didn't appear on that, that doesn't mean your comment wasn't good or worthy. It's just these are the things that I wanted to cover tonight. All right, let's get into it. Devil's in the details. Let's go. All right, so we're going to cover some general comments first. Then we're going to cover one or two comments from other cases I follow. And again, as usual is the case, the rest of the video will be about Idaho 4 with a banger at the end, a banger discussion about the 17-minute call that Jack and Kaylee apparently had on FaceTime that he didn't remember. We're going to talk about that 17-minute call because a question came up about whether or not we just didn't read the document carefully, because Steve Gonzalez says we don't read. That phone call was the night before, not at the night of the murders. And that's what we're going to look at. It's a banger discussion. So wait for the end for that or skip ahead. I prefer that you not skip ahead. I'd like you to watch the whole thing because that helps all of us out. All right, let's get into this. General comments first. Piece of Cheese says, oh my God, tears and at the start of the show, making my whole face hurt. We had a great moment at the very beginning. By the way, this is not a family show. You should know that. Backstage, we had a moment where Logan from Bronx Tales True Crime asked Dago about his cold and asked if it was in his chest. If it had moved into his chest, though. He heard it a different way, and it created a hysterical moment. I'll leave that a little bit on the down low for this because we're a little early in the video to talk about that. We have potty humor. We have humor like 15-year-old kids. Last night's show was a little raunchy, and it had people laughing in tears. If you like adult humor and you like a little bit of fun and spicy conversation to go along with your true crime, this is the show for you. Don't miss your next Crimes After Dark. So thank you, Piece of Cheese, for the mentioning how that had you rolling. We might talk about it some more in a moment. We'll see if I pinned a comment that talked about specifically. Daenerys Targaryen, 1019. Listen, 1-1 intro. Oh my God, we missed 1-1's intro. And here's the thing. 1-1 has got a very cool deal going on. Again, he's NYPD police officer, and he's kind of, well, he's not kind of, he is a friend of mine and a friend of the show, and he lends his law enforcement experience to the show, and it's a great, great thing. But we've gotten used to him doing a monologue, and the best part about it, and he's on the East Coast, and I'm on the West Coast, so his little boy, his children are going to bed, and yet they let his son stay up and watch Daddy on TV before he goes to bed. And I forgot 1-1 on the live show and got into a big, huge discussion about that funny moment that happened behind scenes. We were talking about it, and we just kind of went into the show, and someone was like, oh my God, 1-1's intro. And that poor boy stayed up to watch Daddy do his monologue. That he got a late bed last night. Sorry about that. It's one of the things that we love that is cool about the show. And we'll do better with the little man next time. Thank you. Amanda B., one of our mods and aficionado and a whole bunch of things, including organizing and documents, says, be sure that 1-1 does his intro for his little man so he can see his vampire daddy. She was the one that kind of brought to my attention. And Robin was like, oh my gosh, you forgot. So Amanda, thanks for catching us. How embarrassing was that moment? Anyways, thanks for catching that. Janae 22. I said that wrong. I slaughtered it. I'm sorry. I do my best. Says, where do I find how to allow gifted memberships? Oh my gosh. Can I show that on screen? I feel like I want to show that on screen. Give me a second to try to see if I can pull up an example real quick for you. So what she's talking about is, we have a lot of people who gift memberships. I'm going to cover gifts in a minute. There's a lot of people who gift memberships. And, when they do that, I'm trying to find it for you. Oh my gosh. Can I find it? I can't do it. Can I? I would have to be watching somebody's live to show you, and I don't see anybody on live. Anyways, here's how it works. When somebody gifts you a membership, you have to have gift memberships turned on. So if you're on a browser, real quick, if you're on a browser, not on your phone, I don't know that it works on your phone, although I heard that they added the functionality, so maybe. In the lower right corner while you're watching a live, there's a little dollar sign. If you click on that dollar sign, it's the way that you can gift people money. But there's also an option there for you to receive gifts like gift memberships. You have to have set your account to receive gift memberships. So a lot of gift memberships got handed out last night. We'll cover that again in a minute when we briefly cover what gifts came out. But that's how you get it. So somebody was asking, how do I get it next time? Or how do I have a chance to get in there? That's how you do it. Lower right corner, a little dollar sign, click on that. Make sure you say, you'll click on the option to allow yourself to receive gift memberships. All right. James Moen, 8676, says, talking to Bianca Jane, did DA also drop the Deep South guy? Now, I think what you're talking about here is Deep State JJ, Joe's State of the Deep, is who you're probably talking about. Two things I want to say. One, JJ has a full-time job, and he also is a musician, and he does gigs on the side. And so certain nights he has gigs, and he told us his schedule for this upcoming near future. And he's going to mostly always be out on Wednesday night. It was Wednesday night, right? Anyways, he's going to be regularly out. So no, JJ has not been dropped or replaced or anything like that. Just letting you know. Yeah. So thanks for asking. JJ's still with us. It's all good. Resist the Woke says Logan is sharp as a tack. Yes, Logan from Bronx Tales True Crime, who is a newest member of the panel, as we call it, and her own true crime channel, Bronx Tales, is shined last night. She shines every night, I swear, but she really shined on our panel last night with some really brilliant comments and some insights, and got all of us thinking. And her crowd and our crowd were like, wow, she's smart. And I would say, for a feather in our cap, that's exactly why Logan's going on our show with us, because we recognize her as something special. And so, Logan, thank you for lending your talents to our group. And I hope that your people are getting something as well from us. So we've got a collection of smart, brilliant minds that get together and share their different insights. That's why she's here, and we appreciate her and love her. Thank you very much. TDS 3681-D3Q. That's a hell of a mouthful. I subbed to all three of you, and I don't know which one I'm replying to. Look, I wish there was a better way to do this. In fact, all I know is that you're watching right now. I know that you're watching one of my competitors, the other channels, and that's okay. That's what the little paperclip icon, if you look up in the corner, it has that little paperclip looking thing. That tells me that your chat is coming from somebody else's chat. So no big deal. I don't get mad about that. I'm not bent out of shape, but that is a problem, right? If you're watching Logan's stream on Bronx Tales, you're seeing her chat and her chat only. If you're watching Dago's stream, you're seeing his chat and his chat only. And if you're seeing my stream, you're seeing my stream chat and my stream only. It is a problem. We see the moderators and the people who are in the backstage see all the chats combined, so we see everything, and we can play that on screen. The problem is when we play it on screen, it goes over top of people's faces, and it'll be real tiny anyways, and you wouldn't see it. So I don't know how to get around this right now, but I do want to say thank you so much, TDS 3681-D3Q, for subscribing to all three of us. I love that, love that, love that. And it means a lot. So thank you very much. Regardless of which channel you decide to watch the Crimes After Dark show through, we appreciate your viewership and supporting your favorite channel. Thank you very much. Siggy M6F. Oh my God, DA, you don't give subs what they want. Let the program continue, please. I get it. I get it. When we wrap up at the end of the night, sometimes within an hour and a half, sometimes within 2 hours, although lately 2 hours has been the thing. Some of you want to keep going and going and going. Some of our streamers that we go with will stream for hours at a time. Dago, like 5-6 hours at a time, or Lana, but Lana doesn't go with us. But some streamers stream for hours and hours and hours. And I tend to stream 1 to 2 hours because I am busy, 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 and I can only have so much stamina. On top of that, two of my or three of my panelists, maybe even four of my panelists, are on the East Coast or further east than I am, and so it's getting really late for them by the time we do our show. So it's both a courtesy to myself and a courtesy to my team to let them have a break and get off the air at some point, because they've got lives, they've got families, and whatever. So I really appreciate the sentiment that you wished we would go longer, but we all need a break at some point, and I'm showing respect to my team as well. I don't want them to feel obligated to hang out with us for hours and hours and hours at a time. So it's a choice we made to just keep it short, synced, and hopefully that makes you come back wanting it more. You have to wait till the next time. Anticipation. All right. All right, real quick before we get into the meat of the discussion, our cases and the questions that came from the cases, I just wanted to do a shout out to our gifters and supporters. Amanda B gifted a membership. Again, I told you a little bit ago how to turn on those gift memberships so that you can receive that. It's a lottery type system. So if you're set up in that system, when a gift membership pops, it goes to people on a random assignment. We have no control over it, so you may or may not get that gift membership. Then Amanda, it looks like, did another one a minute later. On Dago's side, True Crime Cafe, he himself, as the creator, gifted 5 memberships and then gifted another 5 memberships. Every single month, I believe, creators are allowed to gift 10 free memberships to people. I forgot about that. For God's sake, I'm going to try to figure out how I can gift my 10 free memberships to people as well. So a bunch of memberships went out there. Then Amanda, I think actually on my behalf, gifted 5 memberships. So I guess I don't have to do it because Amanda did it for me. I think that one's from our mod side. And then Bianca Jane gifted a membership to somebody. I don't know if that's Logan's side. I think it might be Logan's side. So thank you for that. A couple more shout outs of our gifters. Amanda gave another 5 memberships. Again, that might be mine. I'll have to ask Amanda if she's gifting mine or if she just paid for 10 memberships. I think she might be gifting our channels 10 memberships. So she took care of me if that's the case. Tomboy Charm member for 28 months. Holy crap. I think that's got to be on Dago's side on the True Crime Cafe. Thank you so much for being a longtime supporter of Dago, and thank you for being part of our community, and we welcome you with open arms. I know that you're very, very supportive of everything that we're doing, so thank you as much. And as well, Seahawks fan 72, also I think maybe from Dago's side. I hope maybe from Dago's side. I don't want to say hope because I don't want to get it wrong and tell somebody that they're a wrong supporter. Member for 8 months. So thank you very much. And Bianca Jane was gifted somebody a membership on our side. Thank you so much, very much for that. Got a couple more memberships and then we'll get right into the meat of things, or a couple more gifts. Thank you to Whit James, $4.99. Thank you for Steve didn't realize it, but by saying that they shouldn't have been stopping kids who were drinking helps confirm some that the murders happened earlier. That comment right there, I think we covered in heavy earlier, but yeah, by Steve saying, gee, if they had been watching The House, 1122 King Road residents, instead of stopping underage drinkers at the Banfield, maybe this wouldn't have happened. The problem with that, of course, is that it suggests that the murders might have happened earlier during the Banfield stop and not when they told us it happened at 4:00 in the morning. It could be a proverbial slip of the tongue by Steve, which is interesting. Ange K87, thank you so much for the $9.99 donation chat, super chat. I think it's super chat, Fireside Chat tip. What she was basically saying, as I was saying, hey, look, I'm not sure people are really enjoying these fireside chats. So she was like, please keep doing them. And here's a little incentive to do so. Same thing was resist the woke. $5 for the fireside chat tip, letting me know that they want those fireside chats, this one like this, to keep going. So thank you so much for giving that. That compelled me. I was like, not sure tonight, but that was like, oh, well, I'm doing it. I'm doing it now. All right. And then lastly, real quick, I think this is last one. Yeah. We're with James again, $4.99 donation. We are all being punked, and it's going to come out in a movie in 2028 about the cult of Moscow. Maybe so. This whole thing is just like a complete shit show, Idaho 4. With James is also then became a member of the channel. Thank you so much. Donations and a member. A fantastic day for us. A win-win-win. A new member to the family. It's amazing. And Michelle Rose, 740, a member for a month. Thank you so much. My favorite channel. I appreciate that so much. There are a lot of channels out there, and it means a lot to us. And Mama J, 227, another gift, $5. There's only one victim we know, almost no details about. That's the CI or the target, in my opinion. Very, very, very interesting comment. We'll get into those a little bit later in the comments. So thanks for our gifters. Let's get right into the meat of the questions from the night that didn't get answered. All right, we're going to have one from 3 different cases, one question from 3 different cases, and the rest will all be Idaho 4. So here we go. Ange K, 87. If I'm not dreaming this, I thought there was a picture of the lead prosecutor with a couple of the local Odinist buddies, but I may have been dreaming it like Dylan. I will do some research. What she's talking about is the Richard Allen case, the Delphi case, which we talked at length tonight in the early part of the show with Logan about the Odinist and whether or not there was a ritualistic group, Odinists, in the Richard Allen case. And, Ange K said, if I may be dreaming this, but I thought there was a picture of the lead prosecutor with a couple of the Odinist guys as his buddies. Wouldn't that be interesting? I am kind of new to the case. I came in after the conviction of Richard Allen, but during the appeal. So now we're appealing a wrongful conviction. And now I'm all in and trying to figure out what happened the first go around. So I'm a little late to the party, but thank you for sharing that question or that tip. I will look into that as I go back and reinvestigate Richard Allen's first case as we do the appeal. Ange K again, Ange K 87, different case, I think this time. Just got some juicy intel on Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs. A close family member of Lance said both were involved but did not plan it. They were coached, allegedly. The truth is coming. What is that talking about? Charlie Kirk's assassination, allegedly by Tyler Robinson. Tyler Robinson allegedly had a I don't want to get the word wrong. I don't want to get that wrong. A transitioning partner named Lance Twiggs, allegedly, and had texted Lance about his plans to kill Charlie Kirk. That's the official story. And now what Ange K is saying is there's some new details that say a close family member of Lance said both Lance and Tyler Robinson were involved, but they didn't plan it. They were coached, and more stuff is coming. That would be crazy off the hook if it's true. Right now, I have to couch that as in rumor because I have no idea what you're talking about, but you have my curiosity. Thank you very much. Inside Your Bones, watching another channel. I'm not sure which one that is. Probably, I don't remember which one it is. Anyways, by the way, I watched all the Kentucky case DA is covering. Everyone should support those women, please. Delphi, Indiana, Mickey Steins, the sheriff who shot the judge, Kevin Mullins, in the judge's chambers, and the related case of Ben Fields. And lately we've had an occasion to bring on the defense rests, Jody from Australia, another true crimer who's made contacts in Kentucky from locals who say it is a systemic problem of sexual abuse in that county, all the way from judges and cops and all the way even further up the chain. That case is indeed off the hook, and the residents of Letcher County need to be focused on for their own safety. We need to bring all eyes on that community so that people don't just go missing and end up dead in that county, because already people have been killed. We believe we have reason to believe people are being killed in that county right now to shut them up, because not very many people know the story. The more people that know the story, the more likely it's going to raise alarms when these people start ending up getting killed. So please, please, please go watch if you haven't. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and find my stuff on on Mickey Steins. Mickey Steins is the playlist, I believe is what we called it, because that's the sheriff that shot but it also relates to Ben Fields, his deputy, all kinds of corruption. You need to catch up on that case. Do so ASAP. Now, the rest will be Idaho 4. All right. From one of our other panelists, from their channel, Gwenda Mueller, 8590. Hey guys, big issue. Trouble opening Xana's door, but going on CDC's, Xana's body was nowhere near the door. So what is blocking it? yet another BS added to the story. And just to real quickly, right, it's been a while since I've reviewed that, but that was part of the whole discussion about whether or not Hunter Johnson, who arrived and saw Xana on the floor, whether he could open the door or not, or whether something was blocking the door. And yet from the position of Xana's body, she's across the room from the door, up against the far wall from the door. So what's blocking the door when he goes in there? The story felt like BS to a lot of us because we were like, well, wait a minute. This doesn't match with this. What was in front of the door? The $1,000,000 question. I've seen pictures, by the way, and I don't even know if I want to speculate. I've seen pictures of something that looked like it was in front of the door. It wasn't a body. It was an object. I don't know if that picture is legit or if it's AI, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you for asking the question. What was blocking the door? Or did we understand Hunter wrong? Same user, Gwynna Mueller, 8590. So much blood, but not one drop of blood on Hunter. Clothes, shoes, hands, nothing. That's sus, as I have no clue what is on the through 2020. I'm sure Emily said she called 911. So a lot of discussion happened during that night's show on 2/4/2026, where we talked about the blood, how long it takes for blood to dry, whether or not Hunter should have had blood on him because he said he checked the pulse. Some people said he checked the pulse of both Ethan and Xana. Didn't know what happened, thought she was unconscious, at some point realized that they had been killed, when exactly, but yet doesn't appear to have any blood on him whatsoever. Some discussion took place about how it had been 8 to 9 hours by the time this happened, and so therefore all the blood would have dried. There's discussion about whether or not all the blood would have dried, but anyways, that was a long, good discussion, and we talked a lot about footprints that are missing, blood tracking through the house that are missing. Even if the scene had dried by the time the police came and Hunter came, it still leads questions. How did the killers walk around the house, or the killer walk around the house without leaving footprints everywhere? That's another part of the discussion we'll come up with later questions. Wade Bird 77 YS8VD. Man, if that's supposed to mean something and I'm supposed to read it a certain way, I need to know, but I'm probably going to keep slaughtering it until I find out. Devil's Advocates, how many people actually supposed to patrol? Didn't you say that 7 cops got assigned? Is it same night or in a rotation? So what they're talking about is an Idaho, or a document agreement with the University of Idaho and Moscow Police Department to embed 7 police officers with the University of Idaho, and to embed officers in Greek life, sororities and fraternities. And yes, it was on a rotation. They had a special patrol that was set up in certain nights of the week. They actually had 2 special patrols, Patrol 1 and Patrol 2, and 7 officers that rotated through that thing. So no, it wasn't 7 officers at one time. It was I think it was 7 officers dedicated to being points of contact with Greek life, and then they had patrols certain nights of the week, certain days of the week, and there was Patrol 1 and Patrol 2, not all at the same time, as I understand it, at least. All right, Patty Burnett, 1142. There was a 911 call reporting NG. I'm not sure what that meant. There was a 911 call reporting NG screams from 1122 at 3:01 a.m. that was ignored and eventually covered up. That is a hugely intriguing comment to me. Hopefully one of my mods or whatever that watch this will take the note and help us find that, or I need to draft a public records request, because if there was a 911 call reporting that they heard screams at 3:01 in the morning from the 1122 King Road residents, that would be monstrous. So if it had been covered up, that's illegal, I believe. So we should be able to public records request. So I guess I should probably FOIA, but not FOIA is not the right word. Public records request a call detail of 911 calls between 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning to see if there was a 911 call about a scream that was heard at the 1122 King Road residence. That would be enormous. Thank you. Ange K, 87. Have we talked about the guy Birdie said put on his uncle's ATF jacket and entered the crime scene? No, we haven't talked about it. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I haven't heard that one. I think I've heard people say it before. I haven't heard about it. I don't know the details about it, and I don't know where Birdie surfaced that information. She's talking about Birdie Bombshells. Birdie and I used to go together weekly, and then we kind of moved it to bi-weekly, and now we're kind of hit and miss on when we go together. I still consider him a friend. I still consider his channel, symbiotic with us, but he covers a lot of angles we don't cover. So I'm not sure about this one, Ange K. So maybe if you can help isolate a video that you know where he said it in and where and what time frame he said it in, and I'll go take a peek at it. So thank you. Gary King 4403, Molly was carrying her dog. That comment comes because a lot of discussion last night revolved around whether Molly McMichael, the DoorDash driver, got out of her car looking for the front of the house or where to deliver the DoorDash delivery at 4 o'clock in the morning, and whether or not, according to her record, she got out and walked her dog. Many people said they didn't see her with her dog. All they saw was her with the phone in her hand. So somebody here is saying, Gary King 4403, Molly was actually carrying her dog. Because a lot of discussion took place about that. Doesn't make sense. She left her car with the door open, yet her dog didn't leave or escape. She left the food in the car, apparently, because she looks like she's walking without food bag in her hand. She only has a cell phone. So that's the part I'm confused about, because you say she's carrying her dog. Many people said they only saw a phone in her hand. Did we miss the dog? Did we miss the bag of food? How good was that video, seeing Molly walk around? I'd have to see it again to now see what I see, if Molly was carrying her dog or a bag of food or just her phone. So thanks for asking or bringing that up. Not asking, bringing it up. Anonymous, Mystic, Amanda B. This is for one of our mods, Amanda B's. Amanda B, I drove for DoorDash. I had to go through don't go there. You had to go through a background check. You can't have a felony record. She wasn't delivering food. Really, really interesting comment. A lot of comments were made in the chat about this very same thing. You can't drive for DoorDash with a criminal record. She had a criminal record, multiple driving offenses, I believe, all kinds of stuff on her record. So how exactly did she drive for DoorDash if she had a felony record, or she had a criminal record, or she had driving citations? Would they allow her to drive for DoorDash? And this person is saying, look, I drove for DoorDash before, and they do a background check. So if that's the case, it leads to another suspicion about Molly. We have a million suspicions about Molly. Sorry for the hiccups all of a sudden. All right, Tara Tate 2533 on one of our channel's subscribers watching from their side. Just a thought, aside from Molly, about the texted comment, Xana's all in black. I've wondered what significant wearing black would have had and why that would be texted. Any thoughts? I think what you're talking about on this comment was the text exchange between Dylan Mortensen, survivor of that night, right? And Bethany Funk, survivor of that night, and how they're texting each other about, I saw somebody in all black, in which I think Bethany replied back, no, Xana was wearing all black. And she's like, no, he was wearing black or something. There was a discussion about the all black. I think it was Bethany that said, it was Xana that was wearing all black. And Dylan had to correct and say, no, I'm talking about the person I saw leaving the house was wearing all black. So that's what I recall off of my memory. It's been a while since we've dug into that question. So thanks for bringing it up. Anybody who's watching this, if that sparks a memory to you about the all black, but I would agree. An oddity of it was, did it feel forced and staged that they mentioned in texting the all black comment and that Xana was wearing all black? And was Xana, in fact, wearing all black? That's another. Let me digress on that for a minute. Xana's body that was accidentally leaked to the public. This is a bigger question than I realized just now. Just now I realized this. Xana's body that was leaked to the public by accident, and the photos that were sent out to the public by the Idaho State Police and then pulled back after they realized there was some oh shit moments, like maybe Xana's body, or I know some of you don't think it's Xana. So the body that was seen in one of the pictures at the bottom, the body was wearing a gray sweatshirt with cuts in it. And allegedly, we were told that Xana was wearing a gray sweatshirt, I think. And if that's the case, then it doesn't make sense to the comment of, no, Xana was wearing all black. Unless Xana had gone out to the Sigma Chi party with Ethan that night, dressed in all black, and then came home and got changed into comfy clothes, like a gray sweater, in which case that would explain a lot of that. So thanks for bringing it up. WadeBird77YS8VD says, what was the comment about? Don't forget the foundation in the bathtub, or whatever that was said. I think what you're referring to, I know what you're referring to. And I don't remember where I saw it. So I have to be careful because it keeps coming up and it's super interesting to me and I need to find it again. So again, for you sleuthers out there who know exactly where it was said, if it was written in any official court record, please help me out and find it so that we can show it on screen so that everybody can see it with their own eyeballs. Supposedly Xana was on TikTok before her death at 4 something in the morning. I think they said 4:12 in the morning was a TikTok message from Xana or activity on TikTok that was seen. One of the last comments made by Xana allegedly was an odd comment that stuck out somewhere to someone. Why did Xana post this comment? And the comment was something to the effect of, don't forget to check the foundation under the bathroom. And if that was said, I need to see it. I need to see it because this keeps coming up and it would mean something to me in my theory that possibly people were killed in that house in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and then staged in the house into other rooms after they were killed. If they were killed in the bathroom, maybe somebody, and it might not have even been Xana, could have texted from her phone on TikTok, hoping that somebody would eventually find it, a hint, a clue. Don't forget to check under the foundation of the bathtub or the bathroom. The problem with that, of course, is 4 months after the crime, I think it was, they tore the house down, completely tore it down to the foundations. No one will ever be able to go check that foundation under the bathroom. Isn't that interesting? All right. Rochelle Fiscus. Steve did just say in the interview that the cops on Banfield were not supposed to be down there. What they were supposed to be up at 1122, watching a controlled buy. So this is I probably read that a little bit awkwardly, but what Rochelle Fiscus is saying is a really, really good comment. He said they were not supposed to be down there. If Steve, that's what she's saying. I'd have to read and see the comment myself, but this is something that's come up a lot. If Steve said in several different ways that the cops that were there that night should have been watching the house instead of at the Banfield stop, why were they watching the house? One argument would be is the alleged one of the victims was a CI, a confidential informant. They were watching the house because one of their the victims in the house was a confidential informant and they were supposed to be keeping an eye on them. Maybe there was a drug buy that was supposed to happen that night or a controlled drug buy that was supposed to happen out of that house with their confidential informant in the house. And somebody came by and knew that the confidential informant was setting them up and literally killed the entire house, wiped out the entire house minus 2 people. And that's another mystery, wouldn't it be? Why 2 people didn't get killed in that would maybe suggest that the people who came to do the killing knew 2 of the people, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe they knew them all, but 2 of the people weren't the problem. It was only 4 people that were the problem. Anyways, the point being, really, really, really good question. Was there a reason why the police were supposed to be watching specifically 1122? And we talked about this before. Where that police car, that unmarked car was parked that night appeared to me to be right between the Whites and another building on Taylor Avenue with a direct view through those buildings to 1122 King, indicating that the cops may have actually been watching 112 King Road residents from the Taylor Avenue side between the White's apartment. Why would they pick that location? Multiple reasons. One, it gives them an eyeball shot of 1122 King Road residents, which they're watching for their confidential informant. That's a theory only. That's a theory. They were watching the house. And being on Taylor Avenue, nobody can get to that house without going past them in their unmarked car. So allegedly, they wouldn't be a big red flag to killers coming to the scene because it's not a police car sitting there. It's an unmarked car sitting there. So maybe the killers, if they were expecting somebody, or if they were expecting a drug buy, the drug buy would have gone by and not known that the unmarked car was a police car watching and scoping out the house, waiting for it. It's a really, really interesting theory. Was the unmarked car there because they were expecting something to go down and they didn't want the people who were arriving to the house either for a buy or a kill to notice that there were cops actually literally on scene waiting for it to happen? And did the cops get distracted right before that happened? And was that distraction planned? Or were the people who actually pulled off the crime running away from the crime when the cops said, hey, why are you running? Stop. And those people were involved with the crime. All those questions are good questions that should be asked. I know that they, meaning mainstream media and the families, want us to stop asking those questions. But those are really good questions with a lot of teeth on it and would explain a ginormous cover-up, in my opinion. Mama J 227, Lee, check out Officer Sneeve? Or is that a typo? He went to U of I and was also a member of Moscow Fire and Ambulance. That is great. Thank you so much. I will see if we can find out who Officer Sneeve is, or is it Steve? I don't know. Is it a typo, or is that actually the name, Sneeve? Is that a last name? So thank you, Mama J. We'll see if we can look into that. Claire Riley, we need all texts for 24 hours. And that's a great comment. What I think she's saying is the same thing I've said. What all the kids were doing leading up to the murders is important to a lot of us. A lot of us. We would like to know, who were the kids texting in the hours before the murders? Hell, why not a whole 24 hours before the murders? What did they do the day before the murders? Why isn't that important? Why did they determine in this case very early on that nothing the girls or the guy or Ethan or anybody did that night before the murders has any relevance whatsoever? It was a random kill in the middle of the night with no motive whatsoever and no pre-planning. It just happened. And so therefore, everything that was going on in the kids' lives before the murders is immaterial and irrelevant. I cry bullshit. It would be great if they did some investigation into what the kids were doing in the last 24 hours before their death, or maybe even the last 48 hours before the death, to look to see if there was some kind of clue. Did they look into it and they're just hiding it all from us, or did they never look into it? I think they may never have looked into it. And if that's the case, it tells me you don't look into areas you don't want the answers to. They had their story and they didn't want to come up with an alternate reason for the murder. So they don't want to know what the kids were up to, because it might just lead to questions that have to be investigated, and they didn't want to do any investigating. That's my gut feeling. Colby 276. My house is hard to find, so I have a pretty good description in my DoorDash. It sounds like 1122 was one of those houses. I wonder if they did too. Just to clarify for those who haven't heard it before, the original house plan for 1122, from what I understand, faced a different direction, and they added on to that house and added a third floor, and then they changed the front door location. So in Google, for example, the location allegedly takes people to a different side of the house that was originally the front side of the house, but now is a different side of the house. So that was part of the confusion, is that a modification to the house had been made, and Google would show the old way to get to the house and not the new entrance after they modified the house, which is just interesting discussion if you hadn't heard that before. From one of the other channels that watched us last night, M. Stokes 8058 says the Xana delivery is for a purpose, and the autopsy, which we will never see, would answer the food question. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So what they're talking about again is the Xana delivery of DoorDash may have been, this is the discussion that took place live with our panel, may have been to establish a false timeline. In other words, the murders may have happened at a different time, and literally the entire DoorDash story and the delivery of the DoorDash was designed to give the impression that the kids were still alive later than they really were, to shift the timeline, because they wanted to shift the timeline away from the real time and the real people who did it to some other narrative, because they needed to move away from who actually did it for some reason, which we've talked about at length. So the DoorDash delivery may have itself have been fabricated as a way to shift the timeline. And again, we talked about if the food was partially eaten, letting us know that Xana had in her stomach contents undigested or partially digested food from eating that DoorDash delivery, because the indication that she was in the kitchen eating her food at some point, but didn't eat it all. So if that's true, and that's in the documents, that Xana had started to eat the DoorDash delivery, therefore proving she was still alive at 4-something a.m. in the morning after the DoorDash delivery got there, then let's see the autopsy report that says that that food is in her stomach, consistent with her having just eaten. If she has no food in her stomach, then we have to ask the question, who did eat the food if it was partially eaten? Lots of questions could be answered, but they don't ask those questions because they don't want the answers, because it might actually lead to you coming out to the story's bullshit. Anonymous, mouse, moose, anonymous, mystic. Why do I keep doing that? I don't know why I keep doing that. It's just a thing. It looks like moose, anonymous, mystic. Tampering with evidence is a crime. This comment got made during a really interesting part in the conversation where we talked about the muddied audio. It appears from many, many people, including many audio experts, that Moscow Police Department released the footage from 1122 King Road ring cam or camera from the porch cam and had muddied the audio so that you can't hear what's going on, that they deliberately muddied the audio. As an evidence of that, we note, for example, two girls come out of the 1112 King Road residence right underneath that camera talking to each other as they get into their car. People pointed out you can hear the girls jingling their car keys and getting out of the car, but what you can't understand clearly is what the girls are talking about. It's as if, oddly enough, somebody has muddied their voices so you can't hear what they're talking about right in front of the camera. If Moscow Police Department, if they muddied the water on that audio without letting people know that the audio has been redacted in some way or muddied to obscure people's privacy or whatever the case may be, and they need to cite the reasons why that was redacted. If they did something like that without letting people know that they did it, that I believe would be illegal. That's what my belief is. We'll have to look up the law, but we believe that doing that is basically tantamount, as this person is saying, to evidence tampering. It's evidence, and they muddied the audio without even letting people know that they muddied the audio. They want you to believe they fundamentally altered reality by making you believe that's how it sounded that night, when they may have altered the audio without letting anybody know that they altered the audio. That would be a problem, and I think potentially illegal, and something that people could go after if they can prove that happened. Tigo Biddies 89, shit will still be coming out 10 years from now, I bet. By the way, Tigo Biddies used to be a regular visitor of our channel, and we would laugh, and it would become this running gag. It's a long story. We have inside jokes on this thing. So it's good to see Tigo Biddies' name again. I made a joke about it last night as well with our panel, and we all got a chuckle out of it. You need to see it in its context to appreciate that. But good to see you again. Thanks for checking in. Although it looks like you're watching somebody else's stream. I see you. You're watching somebody else's stream and not mine. It's okay. I don't hold it against you. Thanks for checking in, even if you're not on my side of the equation. I appreciate seeing you and saying hi. And I see a lot of people said, hey, it's good to see you again. So it looks like you've been gone for a while, because based on their chat, it looked like they also haven't seen you for a while. So good to see you again. Another from one of the other channels chat, The Wicked Witch of the Midwest. What a great name. Oh my God, I've never heard this. I myself had an interesting interaction with WSU 911 concerning a Kolpaka FOIA request, I guess is what they're saying. I would love to hear your story. Please, please, please consider telling me that story, or whoever's channel you're following. If they don't know, tell them so they can relate it to me on one of our next Crimes After Dark. That would be amazing. I'm super intrigued about that. All right, another one from either of my co-streamers tonight's chat. Vicky Penny 5679. My brain doesn't operate like a perp. Perps will often revisit the scene, insert themselves into the investigation, and want to hear more about themselves and their crimes. Two things that intrigued me about this comment, so thanks for bringing it up, is there was a moment when somebody asked us, what would be the first thing you would do if you were the perpetrator? And I drew a complete blank. The answer was obvious. Get rid of the murder weapon was one of the answer that I think they were looking for us to do, but I blanked. And one of the reasons why I complete blanked is the same reason this person says. I don't operate like a perpetrator. I don't think like a killer, because I am myself am not a killer. And so it's hard for me. And yes, I follow true crime, so I guess I have to learn how to think like a killer, and I'm trying to do that as well. But there comes times when I'm thinking, well, what would I do? If I were going to commit crime, of course, I would have thought it through, but I don't think about committing crimes. I don't spend a lot of time sitting around thinking about committing crimes and what I would do. So it was interesting because of that mind blank where I just completely froze. Like, I don't know, what would I do is the first thing. What do you mean? What is the first thing you do after the murder? But the other part of the equation is exactly what mainstream media tried to suggest to you, that Bryan Kohberger drove back to the house the next morning, was looking up stories about the killings, watching or listening to the radio and so on. They really tried to lay the narrative that Bryan Kohberger was doing exactly what this person said right here, is criminals often will insert themselves into the investigation and want to hear more about their names and drive back to the crime scene to revisit the scene of the crime. And that's exactly what mainstream media tried to tell you Bryan Kohberger did, while the prosecution eventually told you there's no evidence Bryan Kohberger ever went back to the crime scene afterwards. So all of that was untrue. But you know what? They repeated it over and over and over again until the media had convinced America that it happened. And then they even said, well, that's exactly what killers usually do. They insert themselves. They go back to the scene of crime. And that's what we believe Kohberger did. And then later on go, well, there's no evidence he actually did that. But hey, now that it's in your head, you can't get that shit out of your head. Congratulations. You did a great job mind fucking everybody. Fiji 98 says, over that bridge, Clarkston would make sense, but the cops never searched. No divers. What she's talking about is Bryan Kohberger allegedly went down to Clarkston/Lewiston, Idaho area the morning of the killings. After the killings, he drove down there. He was seen in Costco in Clarkston. He was seen in Albertsons, I think, in Clarkston. And if you went a certain way to get to Clarkston, you would go past Wawaway Park to Snake River, and you would go across a bridge of the Snake River, and you would cross into Clarkston. Many people, and I think that's called the Wolf's Head Bridge. Many people suggested that Bryan Kohberger could, if he was the killer, could have been going on that drive specifically to dump the knife somewhere along the river, the Snake River, which gives you lots of access points. Joe and I from State of the Deep drove that actual route across the bridge in Clarkston up along the Snake River into Wawaway Park to look for if somebody was dumping a murder weapon, could they dump it in the river? And there's a million places. There's a lot of places you can pull over and throw the knife into the middle of the river. And if you didn't send divers out there to look, no one would ever find it. You could go across the bridge as well that she's talking about, the Wolf's Head Bridge, and just dump it out the window as you drive by, throw it out the window and into the middle of the Snake River, and nobody would see it. So, or nobody, especially if they don't go diving for it. So yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. Is that Michael Cook 3874? What do you guys think of Steve Gonzalez saying he knows Ann Taylor is going through things and watching video because she didn't have it? I didn't hear, and this is I think on one of our panelists. It doesn't, at this point we don't want to call them competitors. They're panelists. They're on with us. We're all working together. I don't know that Steve Gonzalez said that. I don't doubt you that he did say it. So I would like to see the reference for myself so that I will more fully comment on it and make a big deal out of it if Steve Gonzalez actually says it, because it's interesting to me as well if he did. That Ann Taylor is probably going through videos because she didn't have it. If Ann Taylor didn't have it, I've got fucking major problems. If she didn't have the discovery that we're all seeing now, there's major problems. Major problems. I have to assume for my own sanity, Ann Taylor saw all the things that we're seeing and had answers to it. So those blood-curdling screams in the 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning time frame, I have to assume that she already heard that as herself and knew the answer, and it was a no-nothing. That's why she didn't follow up on it. I would hate to think. In fact, I will lose massive amounts of sleep if I find out Ann Taylor never even knew about that audio. That would be a major problem. Thanks for bringing that up and giving me sleepless nights. Maury ProBerger. Go back and watch Crime Circus Theory on them exiting the room through the window. Yes, this is a very interesting thing. I can't remember 100% right now, but I think Xana and Ethan, or Xana's room, it wasn't Ethan's room because he didn't live there. I think Xana's room also had a window. I know that Maddie's room had a window and a balcony. Kaylee's room had a window and a balcony. And I think Xana's room had a window as well, which would be at ground level. And so one of the things that I have said early on, I've said this early on, was that if there were multiple killers that went into both rooms at the same time, somebody went in, for example, or some buddies went into the third floor room upstairs, Maddie and Kaylee's room, and somebody went into Xana and Ethan's room down below, and yet didn't cross-contaminate those scenes, tracking blood from one to the other. How do they do that without cross-contaminating the scenes? One way might be to change out of your bloody clothing inside that room and exit a window right out the back instead of walking through the house and tracking blood all over the place. And so I said that a long time ago. I don't talk about it often, but it is a thing that I brought up before. I didn't see it on Crime Circus. It was something I kind of worked through in my mind at one point. But yeah, I miss Crime Circus. I think that he took down all of his videos on Idaho 4, I think. So thanks for bringing that up. Love Giga HZ 868 from one of our panelists. Critic Rick 66. They will retort that Bryan was a crime scene cleanup expert. Duh. Now, I don't know the context of this conversation, but yes, that Bryan Kohberger was studying criminology and would know about crime scenes is one of the allegations why some say he did this crime because he knew how to get away with it, or some say Bryan Kohberger didn't actually do the killings, but he was brought in as the cleanup guy or somebody to advise them on how to clean up a crime scene because he was an expert on it. And if it was the latter, that Bryan Kohberger was brought in as a crime scene expert to help somebody clean up the crime scene or tell them what he would do to clean up the crime scene, it might explain why Kohberger was involved in the murders but did not himself do it. He could have been culpable as an accessory to murder, as somebody that was advising somebody on, if I were going to clean up this crime scene, here's what I would do, or here's how I would do this murder and get away with it, while he himself may not have actually done it. And for some of you, you think, well, what does it matter? Accomplice to murder is murder. Well, it matters because that means other killers are walking free. He just helped the actual people who did it. Or maybe he was one of them that did it. Either way, if anybody else did it with him, or he was an accomplice that was brought up as an advisor to help them clean the scene, it means real killers are on the street, and that should bother you. Apparently it doesn't bother a lot of people, but it should bother you, in my opinion. Wadebird 77YS8VD has a lot of comments today that I'm commenting on. Didn't Payne change the numbering on some things? Yes. We talked about this a few nights ago. There was a number, there was like 8 different crime, maybe more, I think it was 8, evidence numbers that were numbered, and that Detective Talbot had done some sampling with and degraded the sample, and then Detective Payne allegedly came back and renumbered those samples that had been tampered with by Detective Talbot. So yes, that did happen. There were, and in fact, it came up in the documents that we read that a forensics expert was complaining, a forensics expert for the defense and the prosecution were arguing in legal documents that we read about the numbering. And one of the experts said, well, you happened to see the numbering before it got changed. That's where we found out there was a change. You saw the numbering before it was changed. So when I gave my expert opinion, it was based on what I saw when I saw it. I was unaware that somebody came in and changed the numbering on evidence. So now that you've told me, and if it's true that somebody changed the evidence, then I agree with your assessment if that's what happened, because I didn't know that happened. That's in the documents. Yes, somebody came along and changed the numbering on like 8 pieces of evidence. That should bother you. It won't for everybody, but it should bother you, in my opinion. Critic Rick 66, which was somebody that was commenting to Critic Rick earlier, 1-1. Which 3 persons would you have arrested or detained to bring in for further info on the initial first 30 minutes from arriving on scene? This is Crime Scene 101, in our opinion. I talked about this at length with 1-1, who is NYPD law enforcement of over 20 years. The very first thing that would have happened if somebody walked into that house and saw Hunter Johnson walking around with a steak knife in his hand, and they would have screamed and yelled at him to drop the knife, and they would have arrested him and put him in cuffs immediately. And they would have secured him for safety until they found out that he wasn't involved, especially when they just walked into a stabbing scene. So imagine this, you're police officers arriving to a horrific stabbing scene, and a guy's walking around with a steak knife in his hand, and you just let him walk around and it's no big deal. Why would you do that? I would argue because you already know he's not involved, because you already know what happened. That's my theory, but I can't prove it. And hopefully we will someday, but maybe we never will. Maybe we'll never prove it because America likes lazy answers, and they don't think about things like, why the fuck wasn't Hunter told to drop the knife and at least secured until they figured out that he had nothing to do with the stabbings while he's holding a steak knife in his hand. In addition, the others that should have been immediately detained and separated are the survivors of the house, Bethany and Dylan, who were allowed to stand together side by side outside and tell their story of what happened within earshot of each other. That is never a thing. You should separate all witnesses to the crime and then have officers interview each one of them separately and compare the stories to make sure they make sense. But no, that did not happen. They were allowed to stay within earshot of each other to make sure, I shouldn't say to make sure, ensuring that if those 2 girls were colluding on a fake story, they got to hear what the other person said. I'm not saying that was done on purpose. It could have just been bad policing. But it allowed the girls to tell their story in front of each other, therefore making sure that they were on the same page about the story, when that's not how you do things. You separate the witnesses and you ask questions to make sure, especially when you could not have ruled out that Bethany, Dylan, and Dylan were not part of the murder, that they were the ones that committed. You can't rule that out. And yet somehow Moscow Police Department did exactly that. They immediately ruled out Dylan and Bethany as possible suspects, never treated them as suspects whatsoever, immediately knew that they had nothing to do with it. And I would argue one more time, it's because they already knew what happened before they arrived. They already knew what happened. There was no reason to treat them as suspects because they knew that they weren't, or that wasn't going to be the story. Either case, they already knew what happened, in my theory. Another one from one of our chats of our panelists, love and other habits. Nice. That's a cool one. Love and other habits. Did you hear any officer ask, why did you wait not 8 hours to call 911? Yeah, the relative lack of questions and follow-up, again, leads to you don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Law enforcement did not want to ask those questions, I think, because they didn't want to have to follow up on the answers. Law enforcement already either knew what happened or they knew what story they wanted to go with, and they didn't want to have to go down avenues that would question it, so that you just don't ask questions you don't want the answers to or you already know the answers to. That's my allegation of what I feel happened. Megastar says, oh my God, Lee is me. I'm like, I don't hear shit ever. And we were talking about, a lot of people are like, hey, on this new audio that this guy's come out with on using the Sherlock software, you hear him say, hey, I thought we were brothers. And I'm like, I don't hear shit. Like, I don't hear shit. And so Megastar's like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't hear shit. A lot of times these enhanced audios where you're like, and here you clearly hear, I love it when they say that. Here you clearly hear, and I don't clearly hear shit. I really don't. I hear something, and if you tell me what I'm supposed to hear, I can probably hear what you're saying you told me to hear, but it's not clear. And it bothers me sometimes when people do you clearly hear this, when I clearly don't. I don't know what I'm hearing. Now, that's not to besmirch this guy's work. It sounds like he's doing amazing work, so kudos to him. And I think his software is amazing, called Sherlock, which was a great marketing thing. And I hope that he's really going to unmuddy those audios. So I hope that's the case. But saying you clearly hear something is one of my pet peeves, because I don't clearly hear shit on most stuff. All right, let's get into the grand finale of this episode, which is the 17-minute phone call between Jack DeCoeur and Kaylee Gonzalez, supposedly that night, a FaceTime call in which Jack DeCoeur said he couldn't remember that call taking place. And many people have said, how the fuck do you not remember a 17-minute FaceTime call? Like, it's a FaceTime call. How do you not remember that? And then Steve Gonzalez came out, and this is what we're going to get to, and said, you people don't fucking read. That phone call wasn't that night. It was the night before. And so this discussion came up. I'm going to read how it came up, and then I'm going to show you the legal documents in which we get to hear, because we asked the question, wasn't the 17-minute call literally in the legal documents that there was a 17-minute call? Yes. It's a shocker, I think. It's going to be a shocker. It was a shocker for me. And a lot of us spent a lot of time reading it and reading it and reading it to see what it said. You're going to be surprised, I think. All right, let's start with the questions. All right, I said I was going to end on a banger. So the next, after we're going to do 2 more questions, and then we're going to end on a banger, which is 3 questions leading into some court documents on the 17-minute phone call. That's how we're going to end on, is the banger. But here's a couple of comments. Not saying that they're not important, because they are. That's why we're covering them, or why I'm talking about them. But let's do this one. Pamela Smith 6221. Logan, I love how much you keep up with the guys. So much fun. I wish all of our comments would come in one big group. I'm watching 3 screens to keep up. 1, holy crap. Thank you for the dedication to watch 3 screens so you can keep up with the chat on 3 different channels, and you're trying to watch 3 different channels, I guess, at the same time. I don't know how you do that. But that's crazy. That's wild. That's amazing. Super cool. And all those great things. That's dedication to everyone to keep up with the chat like that. And Logan, by the way, was on fire last night. And yeah, the guys got a little raunchy, and Logan dished it right back. Logan held her own with the guys. We got a little 15-year-old humor, and she stayed right with us. And so I think that's what she's talking about. Thanks for Logan for keeping up with the guys. It was pretty funny. I think people enjoyed that seeing maybe a different side of you, because I guess you're maybe not quite that edgy sometimes. So if that's the case, then even cooler that you let your hair down and hung out with the children on our side sometimes. So thank you so much. Yellow Jello 66. What was the 17-minute FaceTime with Kaylee about with Jack D? So that's the start of this discussion. What was the 17-minute call about? We're going to dive into that next. Thank you for starting that conversation. I think that might have been what launched us into a hella discussion. So let's get into some of the comments and then into the documents to finish us off. Claire Riley adds, just watching the interview, Jack D was asked what they spoke about for the 17 minutes, and he said he must have thought it was his alarm, but answered it instead. So that's been the answer that a lot of people didn't like. Jack DeCoeur just doesn't remember a 17-minute call with Kaylee that was a FaceTime call, and said, well, I probably thought it was my alarm going off. I hit the button to turn off my alarm, and it must have turned on the FaceTime call, of which I never had a conversation with Kaylee. It just apparently is a ghost conversation that didn't happen. And that was kind of the answer. And a lot of people heard that kind of story and remembered that story and said, that sounds like bullshit. That sounded like bullshit to a lot of people. But let's continue the mystery. The plot sickens, as I say. Painted Desert 77 adds, maybe he picked up the phone, did what he had to do in 17 minutes and hung up. Now, look, that's one of the interesting comments. There were people who said that parts of that murder scene were photographed or streamed or videoed and whatever. And nobody's really talked about the idea about whether the FaceTime call could have been from within the house. That would be a super interesting thing. And I don't know that's what Painted Desert was trying to say, but that's what went to my mind when she said, maybe he picked up the phone, did what he had to do for 17 minutes and hung up. And the reason why I find it intriguing is if that 17-minute FaceTime call was during the kill window, as in like somebody was actually watching it on FaceTime, that would be super intriguing. Would we not be able to go after that FaceTime? Isn't that recorded somewhere and captured somewhere on Facebook's servers? Could we have gone after that? Did law enforcement go after it? If that was the case, and that would put the murder window in 17 minutes instead of more like 9 minutes. And is that enough to kill 4 people? It's just, my mind went racing on that. I never really thought about that. What if somebody did FaceTime or record something that happened from inside the house? But let me reiterate, there's no evidence to me whatsoever that happened. And in fact, here's the shocker about the 17-minute call. Steve Gonzalez has bashed us in the true crime community, saying, you don't read. All you idiots don't read. That 17-minute phone call was from the night before. And somebody in the chat said, no, I'm pretty sure the 17-minute call is discussed in the documents from the ISP. It's not the night before. Now let's see the proof in the pudding and let you decide what you see. When we read very, very, very carefully, the devil is in the details, is what I always say. This is the grand finale. All right. This legal document right now, which is probably a little hard for you to see on screen, is what we're going to focus on. And I got to pull it up so even I can see it. Holy shit. Because this should allow me to zoom in really big. Look at that. But it's apparently a low quality image, unfortunately. So this is from a document that's page 475 of 556. It looks like the big, huge document dump from Idaho State Police. Here's the number, supplement number 0168. It is a arresting officer and their suspect, Bryan Kohberger, victims, et cetera, et cetera. And this is Detective Van Leuven interviewing somebody that's redacted on several occasions beginning on November 15th. So this is an interview with someone, right? So this is going to be the key. And they're talking about the victims and the suspect, Bryan Kohberger. And this was dated, well, the interview took place on the 15th, but the date of this report is 11/15/2022. Why is that bugging me? What the fuck? Report date 11/15/2022. And the suspect is Bryan Kohberger on November 15, 2022. Am I missing something? Kohberger's name has never been associated with the crime that early. What am I missing? Oh my God, I'm kind of, this is not even the shock that I told you I was gonna see. Holy shit, what am I missing? Reported date 11/15/2022. Detective Van Leuven interviewed somebody on several occasions on November 15, 2022. Suspect Bryan Kohberger. What the fuck? I got problems already. All right, let's just move on to the next image. All right, this is from that same report. 0168 up in the corner. See that 0168? This is the key during the interview. That is the key sentences outlined in red. I noted in looking at phone records, but there had been several text messages the night before between this person, I think, who's being interviewed, Jack DeCour, and Kaylee. The last text was from Kaylee to somebody, I think it's Jack DeCour, that's what Jack, the name is redacted, at 2:15 in the morning, telling him that she had his vape and that he could come pick it up at her house. I advised, redacted, probably Jack, that there appeared to be telephone call at 2:26 a.m. between redacted name Jack and Kaylee that lasted approximately 17 minutes the night before. Jack, or redacted, said he did not recall the phone call and cannot explain it. There is the kicker that we all missed, and to Steve Gonzalez's credit, you guys don't fucking read. That phone call was the night before, not the night of the murders. So let's read that again to see if that's exactly what Steve Gonzalez was right about. Was he right? Let's assume for a minute this is Jack in here. I advised Jack that there appeared to be a telephone call at 2:26 a.m. between Jack and Kaylee that lasted approximately 17 minutes. Now, maybe it's not Jack DeCour. It could be a different Jack. It could be a different anybody. But anyways, whoever's being interviewed, I advised them, let's do that. I advised them that there appeared to be a telephone call at 2:26 a.m. between somebody and Kaylee that lasted approximately 17 minutes the night before. This person said he did not recall the phone call and cannot explain it. He said maybe in his sleep he thought it was an alarm and he pushed the side button of the phone to turn the ringer off. If that's Jack DeCour talking about the 17-minute phone call, let's read that sentence one more time. I advised Jack that there appeared to be a telephone call at 2:26 a.m. between Jack and Kaylee that lasted approximately 17 minutes the night before. The night before. So, is 2:26 a.m. the night before, meaning 2:26 a.m. on the 12th? The murders happened on the 13th. So, was it the night before? That's the kicker. And that's what Steve Gonzalez is saying. You guys don't read carefully. That 17-minute phone call wasn't the night of the murders. It was the night before the murders. So there you go. What do you think? More importantly, what the fuck with that other thing? I'm going to check and double check what I just saw and edit that out if I'm wrong or explain it or something with an addendum. But for now, I'm going to fucking hope that I just didn't eat shit on camera live. Thanks for watching another Fireside Chat. If you enjoyed it, please, please, please comment, like, share, watch it fully, put it on play and watch it over and over again for a while to give me some like times because it's not getting great numbers and it's going to hurt the algorithm, hurt the channel if we put out deadbeat videos that nobody wants to watch. So if you did like it, make sure you make it known that you like it so that it stays out there and gets traction and lets YouTube know people like that kind of content. Have a great day. Until next time, see you in the Crimes After Dark.